Hello and welcome back. So today I'm first of all just facing the opposite direction from where I normally sit, so that is where my background is different. And also I'm looking forward to talking about dynasties in Formula One. As we're in the summer break at the minute, there's not really a lot going on except everybody's on holiday. So I thought it'd be interesting to approach the ideas of dynasty in Formula One and if it looks like we're starting to enter a new era of a dominant team. Now, when I talk about dynasties, especially in sport, you may be thinking like not McLaren, Mercedes with Lewis, Red Bull with Max, and then Ferrari with Schumacher, right? Like those are really big Formula One dynasties. You can also talk about like the dominance of like the Lakers and stuff in basketball. You have them. I do, however, want to discuss my theories on what I think is going to happen dynasty-wise, and if I think we are going to enter a period of not necessarily like sustained dynasties, like dynasties that take shorter periods. Now, in my opinion, to be a full dynasty in Formula One, 4 years, 3-4 years minimum has to be your minimum. Honestly, when you're talking about like rulers and stuff, like kings, queens, stuff like that, dynasties tend to be like 10-year minimums. I think in sports, because of the turnover rate of athletes and everything, it's a lot lower in my opinion. So I'm kind of looking at anything that would last longer than 3 years winning streak. And that's exclusively in constructors, not with drivers. Which some of you might contest, but I think it's a different thing. Because I would consider it, if it's a driver, it's driver dominance, but if it's a team winning every year, that's a dynasty, you know? Because you could, if we gave everyone the same cars, one driver would probably win all the time. You're probably going to have a lot less variation in winners if all the drivers are driving the exact same car, right? So currently, I think we're seeing the end of the Red Bull dynasty. They're falling. Christian's out. They're not doing well. Max isn't winning often. Like, dead in the water. Very, Ferrari always. Sorry, Ferrari. But it's very much, they're on their decline. And I think we are going to see McLaren come into kind of like a takeover of being the dominant team in Formula One. And that's not even just winning wise, like marketing wise. I feel like I see so many more videos and things from McLaren where it's like they've gone to do this, they're partnering with this company to do ads. And I think it might just be the contracts their drivers sign, that they have to agree to do so many more ads. It might be because of where I live. Obviously, I'm in the UK. I'm more likely to see UK-based teams and ads and stuff than, say, like Mercedes or Ferrari. And so I do think that does kind of sway everything I see. But it's also like, I get one Williams ad that's like an Energizer ad semi-frequently when I watch things like YouTube, right? But it's only Carlos really in the ad. It's not both of them. Whereas like if I see a Google ad, they either shoot one for each driver for McLaren, either Oscar or Orlando, or it's both of them together doing something. And this over like present dominance McLaren seems to have everything, I think also expands into other racing series. Like McLaren's social media team knows how to work, and I think that's what's really laying the groundwork for this McLaren like golden age we're gonna come into, so to speak, and where it's like you're seeing McLaren like they're there, you know, like they are honestly omnipresent. It's going to be interesting, honestly, to see what happens, especially if they do win this year, because the reason I feel that teams are also able to sustain dynasties for only about 5 years is because you either have drivers leave, you have engineers leave, you have staff turnover in those 5 years. Because to be very honest, unlike many other sports, the retaining of a driver in Formula One is a much shorter period, in my opinion. People are more easily swayed to move teams, because as a lot of drivers have stated before, driving for Ferrari would be like it for them. I think most drivers would be willing to leave their contract to drive for Ferrari for even a season. So it's like your loyalties aren't as high, and also it's like it's competitive. If one team's going to offer you more, whether you're an engineer, a tech, doing anything, you're probably going to go, to be honest, as long as it's not completely upending your life. So it's like, so I think that's why dynasties kind of have this period where it's like, right, it's not normally people who are staying for 40, 50 years at this job, being engineers specifically, right, in this scenario. But it's like, it's people who are there and got recruited in, work there for 5 years, and then get recruited out somewhere else. So it's like, I think that's why we get these shorter time periods of dynasty in Formula One. But I think it's also because, to be very honest, if a team wins too much, other teams are going to start lobbying the FIA. They're going to go basically do the equivalent of tattling to mom and being like, well, no, so-and-so's doing this, and that's not allowed. So I think that's the other thing, is you get a lot of teams kind of reporting back against a team to a governing body anytime they do anything that can be reported on, right? So it's kind of when everyone turns on the team that's currently holding the dynasty that we tend to see this disillusion with them, except for the hardcore fans, where everyone's kind of like, yeah, it was great when so-and-so was winning, but now that it's every race, take Max for example, it's just not fun to watch anymore. You feel like you know what's going to happen before it's even finished. So it does beg the question of, are dynasties actually good for a sport? Which I can see both sides. On one hand, yes, they keep loyal fans there. It kind of, you can always kind of market it as like, oh, will this be their final year, you know? Whereas if you're constantly having new winners, it's kind of, I think it makes it easier as a new fan to kind of be like, well, I liked this team when I started, and then they won 2 years later and it was great, and then we didn't win that year, but we won this year, and it's like you get a lot more give and take, right? Because it just feels more competitive. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I'm really just rambling, aren't I? Basically, McLaren has used this social media presence that they've been working on, to be honest, and seems to have been starting to get pushed about the same time Drive to Survive started airing, where they're kind of really present, and it is setting the ground for them to be very followed and beloved if they win this year. And I think would cement them to potentially start a dynasty run. Now, it will be interesting because currently the top seat is between the two McLaren drivers. If McLaren is going to let them race for it, or if they're going to, not race fix, but they're going to tell someone to be the primary and the secondary and kind of give team orders instead of letting them race. Because regardless of what they do, say they do a primary secondary driver, if the secondary driver's fed up into contract, they're going to leave. If they let them race, one of them might get upset that they didn't do secondary primary because they feel like they could have been primary. And then they also might leave when their contract's up as like a, well, I don't need to be here thing. And I think as long as they can keep their drivers kind of like happy and fair, they have the ability to do a good run at McLaren. I think they could do like a 4 or 5 year run, not necessarily one of the guys winning, the same guy winning every year for drivers champion, but I think if McLaren plays it smart, they can dynasty out until one of those guys wants to leave. Because look at how they're doing now if they keep this level of competitiveness. And obviously this is all up to like how the engineers do and what car adjustments get made. We could come back from summer break and McLaren could go down the drain and we could see someone like Kick winning, you know, like we won't. Kick's never gonna win. But it is interesting that if they do start to win and start a dynasty, I'm interested in if they're gonna pick a primary driver or if they're always gonna let them race. Yeah, dynasty in sport is an interesting thing. I don't know if I agree with it, because I do think it's more fun to not feel like every season's repeating itself and is the same. But in a sport like Formula One, where it really comes down to your engineers, if people aren't moving jobs, you're probably not getting changed results as often as when people are kind of job hopping, right? It's not like a basketball team where it's just down to kind of the skill of the players, right? Well, there is a lot of skill from the drivers themselves. It's almost a 50-50 split on how good they do with kind of engineering and everybody else on that side, and then the drivers. The drivers are only as good as their car, and the car can only perform as well as the driver driving it. So there is a lot more 50-50 to where if one half of that leaves or changes, there is a chance you just automatically go down, right? I don't know. This has been really rambly. I'm so sorry. Hopefully I've edited this to make it coherent. Please let me know your thoughts on Dynasty in Formula One, and if you think we're seeing the end of the Red Bull era and the beginning of the McLaren era, or if we're seeing the beginning of another team's era. I would love it to be Williams. I don't think this is their year yet, but I believe in them. I believe in Williams. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Hopefully it's a bit more coherent next week. Ooh. But please remember to always do your homework, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye!